Oh my gosh, guys, I am so excited for today. I even got a little bit dressed up. I mean, not really. The uniform is still the same, except today I got shorts on. And also, I have a flower clip in today. Yeah, we got really fancy. Also, I think it glows in the dark. That's how excited I am today. Today is my first ever mid-year book tag. I have seen it all over the internet. I think it's so cool to like reflect on all the books that you've read for the year. It's just like a really interesting opportunity to see what kind of books you like, what kind of books you don't like, and just to see your growth throughout the year. So I'm very, very excited. But before we go into the actual books, I would like to go over some stats with you from Goodreads. So far in 2023, I have read 28 books out of my 52 books of the year goal that I had. So I basically essentially wanted to read about a book a week, and so far I've read 28. So we're on par, we're still on track, which is very exciting. But I kind of want to like surpass my goal, so I really gotta pick it up for the last 6 months of the year. Also, right now I'm currently reading Panika, as well as George Orwell's 1984, and they're both really, really great so far. I'm reading Panika on the Kindle, and I have the actual book for 1984. Now, let's get into all the questions. I'm gonna link all the questions down below in the description box, and please let me know in the comments some of your answers for some of these questions, because like I already know what I've been reading, but I'm really more excited to see what you guys have been reading, what you think about what you've been reading. I just think it'd be a really great opportunity to maybe even get some new book references or to get some new recommendations or opinions about books that I've already read. So I'm very excited about that. Please let me know in the comments down below the things that you've read this year and the opinions you have for each of the questions. But first, here's a word from today's sponsor, Colon Broom. Now, Colon Broom is a dietary supplement that helps with fiber. It works as a prebiotic and it helps nourish the good gut bacteria, but it also has a ton of other benefits. So it helps lower bad cholesterol, so LDL cholesterol. It helps lower your risk of diabetes by absorbing a lot more sugar, and it also helps lower your risk of colon cancer because it cleans you out regularly. It also helps with giving you clear skin, and it's overall just a really great product for your gut health. I've been using this for the past few weeks, and I've got to say it has made me a lot more regular. Gross, I know, but it actually is really, really helpful. And if you use the link in my description, you can get 65% off for a 6-month order. Now, their original price is $151, but if you use my link, you get 65% off. And if you use my code Kalila10, you get another 10% off on top of that. So that's 75% off for 6 months worth of Colon Broom. I think that's a wonderful deal. I highly recommend you guys using it, and we can get back to the video. See you later. Now, without further ado, I did my research, okay? I worked hard on these question answers. So let's get to it. The first question is, what is the best book you read so far in 2023? Now, I am going to try not to repeat any of the answers this entire question series, but I do know that this book will come up one more time. I'm sorry, it was just so good. I think you already know what I'm gonna say, but it's Eleanor Oliphant is Completely Fine. That book just hit me like a bus. It was so freaking good. Now, if you don't already know, this book is about Eleanor Oliphant. It's about her mundane life, how she just clocks in, clocks out from work. She's 30 and she doesn't really do anything in her life. She's just existing. She's not living whatsoever until she meets this musician at a concert. I believe she went with one of her coworkers. And once she saw the musician, she was like, yeah, he's gonna answer all of my questions. He's going to fix all of my problems. He's going to be the reason why I have a social life. I go through my trauma. I'm gonna be a whole new person. I just need to get this man to marry me, basically. And she goes through this whole thing of trying to find out where he lives, what he likes. She follows his social media accounts. She tries to do things that he does, and she tries to see him in a natural way so that he'll want to go and talk to her, because it's fate, right? They're supposed to be meant for each other. That's what she's saying in her head. And while she's delusional, she also has this unassuming, unwanted usually, friend in Raymond. He's an employee at the same company that she works at, and he just is the sweetest soul. He just really looks after her even when she doesn't want him to, and he just shows her the way that she's supposed to be loved, the way that she's supposed to be treated. And he's just such a great, like, almost bridge to her healing journey, because she did go through a lot in her childhood. She had a very traumatic upbringing. I don't want to say too much because I don't want to give too much away, and she slowly like explains what actually happened, but he is the bridge to her healing, and he's just always right within arm's reach for her. and he was just such a kind soul. I really loved Raymond almost as much as I loved Eleanor. She has no social cues. She doesn't understand any social references. Her humor is so bone dry, but is actually so hilarious. And she was just a sweetheart. I've never fallen in love with a character the way that I've fallen in love with Eleanor. I read this book about a month and a half maybe ago, and I'm still thinking about it every other day. It was just such a great read. So definitely, without a doubt, no hesitation, Eleanor Oliphant is completely fine. Has been the best book of my 2023 so far. But I do want to mention this. I didn't say this last time, but it is like a literary fiction about mental health and trauma. So if you have any issues with like child abuse or suicidal ideation or essay or emotional and physical abuse, this book may not be the best one for you because they kind of go in depth with her situation. And I don't want to cause any like physical, or I'm sorry, not physical, obviously I'm not jumping to the screen, but like I don't want to cause any emotional trauma on you. So if there's anything that may trigger something, this may not be the best book for you, and that's okay. Now, next up is question 2. The best sequel I've read in 2023. Now, this is actually very interesting because I have not read a single sequel in 2023. Wow. I think that's kind of nuts. I didn't even realize it until I had to answer this question. But I do know I want to get back to the ACOTAR series because I read the first book last year and I thought it was okay, but I heard that the next books get really good. So I do want to commit. I already bought them, so they're just sitting on my bookshelf. I need to read them. So hopefully by the end of the year, I will have at least read one more in that series. So I'll be able to answer at the end of the year. Question 3. What is a new release you haven't read yet but you want to? Oh my gosh, this is so easy. I've been wanting to read an R.F. Kuang book for the longest, and she just came out with Yellowface this year, and I've heard wonderful, wonderful things. Now, if you are not familiar with the author, she is a Chinese American. She wrote The Poppy War, which is also very popular, but I think that's a trilogy. She wrote all of that, obviously. And what's crazy is she's only a year older than me. She's 27, and she is killing it. Like, she's just so wonderful. I've just heard such incredible things about her. She's a really witty, sharp-tongued like author. She does not hide from the truth. She's always like shining a light on societal issues, and I love authors like that. I love coming out of a book feeling more knowledgeable or more self-aware or more empathetic, you know, and she just seems to tick all those boxes for me, and I'm very excited to read one of her books. Now, next up is most anticipated book for the next half of the year. I don't think I necessarily have like a super anticipated book. A lot of the books that I wanted to read came out in the first 6 months of this year, but one book that I know I have my eye on that doesn't come out until later on in July. It may have come out already by the time this video is out, but it's Kathleen Center's Hello Stranger. It just sounds so interesting. The story centers around Sadie Montgomery. She's a woman who just went in for like a routine surgery, and she comes out not being able to recognize faces. Like, can you just imagine how your world just shatters? Like, you don't even know how to function as a person. But it's even worse for her because she is a literal artist, and she's about to enter a portrait competition, and now she can't recognize faces. So that just seems insane. Like, I really want to hear about that story. And not only that, but she's falling in love with 2 different people at the same time. And like, obviously she can't recognize them. So it's really interesting to see how that's going to play out. It just sounds like a book that is screaming, read me. Like, I've never heard a plot like that. It seems very interesting, and I just want to see what happens. I've never read a Kathleen Center book, so this sounds like a great opportunity to see if I like her as an author or not. Next up is the biggest disappointment of the year. I hate to say it, but it was To All the Boys I Loved Before by Jenny Han.
What? Hold up, wait a minute.
I don't even know what to say. Like, you guys know, I absolutely love the movie trilogy on Netflix. I think they did a wonderful job with like Laura Jean's style, her personality, the sisters. Peter like was a well-rounded individual. He wasn't just the stereotypical jock. He had an education, and he was kind and funny and very empathetic and like thoughtful. But in the books, none of the characters were likable for me. If you're not familiar with the story, basically it's about Laura Jean. She's a hopeless romantic at heart, like me. She writes a letter to all the crushes she's ever had in her life, and she literally like puts a stamp on it, everything, but she just keeps it in a box in her room. But somehow the letters get out, and she has to deal with like the fallout of all of her crushes reading that really embarrassing letter, and they're all each individually handwritten. Like, I can't imagine the stress of dealing with something like that. And then she like finds love through that situation. So it's so cute. Like the movies are so well done. And it's strange because usually the movies are never better than the books. Like I think this is my first situation where the movies are by far better than the books, which is just so odd for me because I love the movies and I love the premise. I love the idea. Like the structure of the plot is so good. But the books just fell short to me. I don't know. I felt like all the characters were very two-dimensional. They didn't have much personality. I felt like they all stuck very closely to a stereotype. And I just don't like that. I don't know. I just had such high expectations because I love the movie so much. And the book was really like a punch in the face because I did not expect that at all. I really genuinely thought I was about to dive into it the way I had like my Twilight phase when I was younger. So that didn't happen. And now I don't want to read the rest of the book series because that first book was very like, yikes. And one thing I really didn't like that I forgot to mention before when I mentioned this book was that I felt like Laura Jean kind of took digs at her best friend because we all know her best friend is a little edgy. She's like not cookie cutter, or she doesn't care about grades and stuff, and she's just very like out there and free and edgy, right? But in the book it almost felt like Laura Jean was like talking behind her back. She just like didn't talk highly of her when she talked about her best friend. I don't know, I didn't like that. And also Kitty was so insufferable. I felt like she was so bratty in the book. Like in the movies she's comedic relief and she's so thoughtful and she's kind and she's spunky. But in the book, she's very bratty and demanding and like, yuck. Like I did not like her at all. And it's crazy because I really liked Kitty in the movies. I thought she was adorable and just so fun. But in the books, it was just the opposite reaction. Everyone was so much worse in the books, unfortunately. I really did not expect that. So that was very, very disappointing. I'm still kind of sad about that. Now, question number 6 is what is the biggest surprise, or what was the biggest surprise? I would have to say it was The 7 Husbands of Evelyn Hugo. Now, this was my first Taylor Jenkins Reid book. I did not know how she wrote, what to expect with any of her books, and I just read the synopsis. Now, all the synopsis said was that it's about this A-lister actress. She's in her later years, and now she wants to sit down and write a memoir about all the husbands she's married, so The 7 Husbands of Evelyn Hugo. And she wants this publisher to write it, but she's a publisher she picked specifically because they have some type of history. Just that alone is what I was going off of. So when I went into it initially, I was like, okay, this is probably going to be very vanity driven, super superficial. There's not going to be any real takeaway. That is the idea I was going in with my first TJR read, and wow, this book hit me like a freaking bus. It was so good. It was just so mind-boggling and it was just so beautiful. TJR is so good with like the fluidity of time. She's just so good at going from the past to the present and connecting the dots and like why it's important to go from the past to the present. And I love the dual point of views. It was just such a good book. It was just so well structured. I honestly did not see the ending coming. The book just shined a light on a morally gray woman who would do anything for the people that she loved, and like the cost of being a woman in not only society in general but specifically in Hollywood, and just all the things that she had to go through. And I went in not really liking the premise of this character, and to the end I was like, I loved her, even though again morally gray, but I loved her. I thought she was such a survivor, such a strong woman. It was just a beautiful, beautiful book. Again, hit me like a bus. I did not expect it at all. Very, very good book. This was such a wonderful introduction to Taylor Jenkins Reid and the little universe that she's created, because all of her books are kind of interconnected. They all kind of talk about different characters in each book, so it's just so cool. I really like her. I am her #1 fan. Such a great book. Now, speaking of being a fangirl, question number 7 says, favorite new author, debut or new to you? So again, these are not new authors in general, they're just new to me, but Nicola Yoon and Taylor Jenkins Reid is kind of neck to neck on this one. I love Nicola Yoon because I think she's just so ingenious. She's so creative. She 1000% is a hopeless romantic, and not all of her plots are probable, but the thing is she does such a great job of like straddling the fence of just hopeless romantic, this would never happen but it's beautiful, but also let's talk about some serious life issues. And it's just so beautiful. She's just a really beautiful creative writer. Like in everything there's some really cool illustrations, and I just like how she spaces out the words. It's just, I mean, amazing. And With the Sun Is Also a Star, I feel like she connected romance and really tough topics and blended it so well together. I just think that she is so thoughtful and creative, and she blows me away. I love her. I cannot wait. I think she's writing a new book next year, but it's not a romance. I think it's a thriller, and I have to get my hands on it. She hasn't written a book in a long time, and I really want to read that one. And again, Taylor Jenkins Reid, because I honestly never know where she's going with her books. I never know where the plot is going, and I love that. I love thinking I have an idea about a book and where it's going, and then just being completely wrong by the end of it. I love that. And the last 2 books that I read from her, they did just that for me, and I really think she's a genius. I love both of those women very much, and I will be reading everything that they put out. Now, number 9 is where we're gonna repeat a little bit, and that is newest favorite character. Again, I would be lying if I said it was something other than Eleanor Oliphant. Like, I just love that woman so much, and throughout the book, like, I was kind of getting emotional. Like, I don't know, I felt like I was borderline getting protective of her. She just went through so much, and she was trying so hard to heal, and she was just so pure and just kind, and I just wanted to protect her from any more pain in the world. And I was rooting for her so hard. Like, from the very beginning, I was rooting for her, and to see her like do better made me so happy. Like, genuinely made my heart warm. I love her, and I will protect her with my life. She is such an angel, and I'm so sorry she went through all of that stuff. I know it's a fictional character, but not to me. I love her so much, and I'll fight you for her. That's all I gotta say. Favorite new character, Eleanor Oliphant. Hands down. I would be lying if I said anyone else. Sorry, not sorry. Now, question 10 says, what book made you cry? And that has to be Black Cake by Charmaine Wilkerson. Oh man, this book is a lot. It's very heavy. It takes you on an emotional roller coaster. But for all the life lessons I got out of it, I felt like it was definitely worth it. Basically, it's about 2 estranged siblings. They come together after years of not seeing each other when their mother passes away, and she leaves like recordings for them to listen to. And it basically explains that the woman that they knew and loved was not the woman that they think she was, and all the things that she had to go through to protect them, and all the sacrifices that she made for her family. And wow, I don't even know what to say. Every emotion that these siblings felt, that this family felt, you felt everything so deeply, so palpable. It was almost visceral, like from the heartache to the triumph to the hopelessness, from the pain to the success. Like, you felt everything so vividly. At least I did. And the thing that finally got me was when the mom, I think it was around the 125 page mark, but she finally got like a life-changing break, because she just kept going through trauma after trauma after trauma. And I, like, my heart was breaking for this girl. I'm like, she deserves a break. Like, for the love of God, somebody please give her a little grace, give her a chance to be happy. And then finally something happened that she actually wanted to happen in her life, and I was just so overcome with relief. Like, I bawled my eyes out. Yeah, it was actually, I read it for one of the 24-hour reading vlogs. I didn't film it, but I was bawling, and then I came back when I just had like a little bit of tears in my eyes. But wow, that book was so incredible. Again, not for the faint of heart. It's a very heavy book, but I learned so much from it, and I genuinely loved it. I felt like it was worth it. It was uncomfortable, but in the best way. Just such a beautiful story. I can't even, it just went through so much in just one book. I felt like I lived 2 lifetimes in that one book. It was just absolutely incredible. Again, one of my favorite books this year. I did give it 5 stars, and I think that you should read it, but just buckle your seatbelt is all I'm saying. Now, number 11 is a book that made you happy. And I already know this one. I knew it before I even had to think about it. A few of these, like, I had to think about, but this one immediately, it was Project Hail Mary. That book was so entertaining. I ate it up. I thought it was so amazing. Like, okay, so I went to college for biology, so maybe I'm a little bit biased, but I just thought it was so well done. If you're not familiar with the story, it's about this astronaut. He just wakes up from a coma in a spaceship, and he has to figure out, first of all, where is he? Why is he there? And then he realizes he has to save the world. And it's just following that story, and oh my God, it was so good. It was just so incredible, and it was fun and scary. You're kind of like on the edge of your seat sometimes, but you're also enjoying the ride. Like, for a completely fictional situation, the amount of detail this man put into this story, not only in the plot, but also in the problems that the protagonist had to solve. Like, they were real scientific issues that you don't even think about. It felt like you saw him like go through a hypothesis, see if it actually worked, and then like recalculate based on that answer. And it was just really cool. Like, if you're kind of science driven like me, this would be a really fun book. And even if you're not, I just challenge you to give it a chance because it was really, really good. The storyline was really incredible. And I remember having such a blast reading it. I thought it was one of the best books I read. Very fun, very, very cool. This is definitely a book I will be rereading. I just remember having such a great time getting through this book. Now, the next question is, what is the most beautiful book you've bought so far this year? Now, I already know this. I believe it is, hold on. It is If We Were Villains by M.L. Rio. This is the Barnes & Noble's edition, and I just think it's so gorgeous. Like, first of all, look at that cover. And the pages are black. You love to see it. Very, very cool. I have not read this book yet, but I really, really want to. This book is about 7 young thespians. They went to like an elite art college, and during that time, one of the kids just end up dead. But Oliver Marks, one of the students, he kind of takes the fall for it, is what I'm assuming. And 10 years later, he's getting out of prison, and he really explains what actually happened. So you get to see, did he actually murder this kid? Or was he covering for someone else? Was he framed by somebody else? So it's just following that story, and it just sounds very interesting. And this cover, you can't tell me this is not giving like Twilight vibes or something. It's very beautiful. And I've never read an M.L. Rio book, so I want to read this year. Very, very pretty. I bought this during one of our like Barnes & Noble trips, one of the bookstore blogs, and I just am in love with it. I won't let anyone touch it. I think even when I read it, I'm gonna read it on my Kindle instead of having to open this because it's just so pretty. Also, fun fact, when I was at the bookstore picking this up, I like shuffle through the books to find the perfect one. I don't know if anyone else does it, but every single time I pick up a book, I shuffle through all of them until I find the perfect book. And this one was all the way at the bottom. Got the jackpot here. Very beautiful. Can't wait to read it. All right, kids, we made it to the last question. The last question is, what books do you need to read by the end of the year? And I've got a few. Now, we've already talked about Yellowface by R.F. Kuang. That is a book I have to read by the end of this year. But I've also got 3 more. One of them that I'm very, very excited to read because it's just like a mind-boggling concept. It's Remarkably Bright Creatures by Van Pelt. And okay, listen to this concept. It's about this woman. I believe her name is Tova Sullivan. She just lost her husband, unfortunately, and so she takes a job at an aquarium just to like get away from her life, just to escape the reality of just living with the grief. This isn't the first time she's had to deal with real grief, because 30 years ago she lost her 18-year-old son. He was on a boat and just mysteriously vanished. So she's working at this aquarium, and then she befriends an octopus there, and this octopus figures out what happened to her 18-year-old son, and he's trying to figure out how to tell her, or like communicate that to her. I don't really understand how that part works, but if that doesn't scream read me, I don't know what does. It just sounds so interesting. Again, it's just like a contemporary adult fiction, but I don't know. When I read that, I was like, wow, I really need to read this. And it has great ratings on Goodreads, so I'm very excited about that one. Another book I want to read is A Man Called Ove by Frederick Beckman. Now, this book reminds me kind of like the grumpy grandpa from Up, the movie, but it's about this guy. He's a cranky old man. He doesn't talk to anyone. He keeps to himself until a very boisterous, bright family moves in right next door to him, and they mow down his mailbox. That's how they first introduce each other. And it's just like following their story, their friendship, and it's like about his life and the things that he's been through. And it just sounds really beautiful. It just sounds like a heartwarming hug kind of book, you know? So I'm very excited to read that one. And lastly, it's Little Fires Everywhere. Now, when I mentioned this book before in one of my productivity vlogs, I think, everyone in the comments was telling me I need to read this book. So I felt like I made a great choice when I picked it out, and I'm still very, very excited to read it. I will read it by the end of the year, don't you worry. So it's about this family, the Richardsons. They have a house in the suburbs, and this single mother and her daughter move in, And it's just about like them getting used to each other and unraveling the truths of both their family dynamics and their lives. And it just seems very interesting because the mother of the Richardsons, her name is Alina, she's like very rule driven. She likes her little cookie cutter suburb. And the single mother, she's just the complete opposite of all of that, and it kind of just upends her entire life. And it's just really interesting to see how she deals with that, and I'm very excited to read it. Again, it has great reviews. You guys have been mentioning it to me, you've been telling me I need to read it, so that is a book I really want to read. And with that, that is my mid-year wrap-up. This was so fun. I feel like this is definitely something we have to do every year. It's so cool to look back at all the books I've read and like the books I really want to read too, and why I want to read them, what kind of books I don't like anymore, and just see the evolution of my taste. I think that's really interesting. And I really want to hear like your thoughts too. What kind of books have you been reading at the beginning of the year? Are they still kind of the books that you like reading now? Have your taste changed? Let me know in the comments down below. I want to know all of it. Give me any more recommendations. I know you guys have great taste. And with that, I love you so much, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye.